Ladies and gents, welcome. Andrew Syrios with the Syrios Brothers. Today I am doing my second book review for this book, Great by Choice by Jim Collins and Morton Hansen. Jim Collins is, of course, best known for this book, Good to Great, but I think in many ways, Great by Choice is a better book, and it's certainly a better book for now. Great by Choice is all about dealing with volatility, companies in volatile and turbulent times. And if you haven't noticed, with COVID and the lockdowns, unemployment skyrocketing up, coming down some, but still high, historically speaking. Inflation starting to pick up. The real estate market's on fire. Cryptocurrencies are on a roller coaster. Yeah, we're in volatile times. This book, Great by Choice, was written right after the 2008 financial crisis. So it's a very different crisis, but fitting still. Very good, very topical. Now, the way Jim Collins always approaches these, he takes companies that have X factor, whatever it is he's looking at, and then he compares them to similar companies in the same industry that didn't do X, and sees what are the differences, sees if he can find any connecting threads, any consistent or similar patterns that the companies that had the X and did the successful thing did, and companies that didn't do. So in Good to Great, he looks at companies that were doing just average, mediocre, going with the market, and then sort of just switched, and all of a sudden we're just destroying the market. I think it was 3 times better than the Dow Jones for 15 consecutive years. Great by Choice, he looks at a similar thing, but he's looking for companies dealing with volatile and turbulent times. So he looks at 3 major factors. 1, the enterprise sustained truly spectacular results for an era of 15 plus years relative to the general stock market and relative to its industry. 2, the enterprise achieved these results in a particularly turbulent environment, full of events that were uncontrollable, fast-moving, uncertain, and potentially harmful. And 3, the enterprise began its rise to greatness from a position of vulnerability, being young or small at the start of its 10x journey. So he finds only 7 companies that meet the criteria that he's looking for: Amgen, Biomet, Intel, Microsoft, Progressive Insurance, Southwest Airlines, and Stryker. And these are companies in very different fields, like Progressive Insurance and Southwest Airlines are in very, very different industries, as is Microsoft and the rest of them. But he takes those companies and he compares them to a similar company that didn't do very well in these turbulent times. These could be turbulent economy-wide or just for that particular industry. So it's not similar, like these are only companies that went through the financial crisis or COVID or something. This was written before COVID, but something like that. But companies that went through their own crisis, perhaps just for their industry. I think the thing that really stuck out to me in this book, probably the key concept, is the idea of consistency, of not hunkering down, not jumping in too fast, going too far. There's a very, very common human psychology to want to go all in and just go big, or hunker down and just kind of like cower in fear. The market is either greed or fear. It's feast or famine. And the really successful companies, and I'd say individuals, although this book is about corporations, live in that middle range. And he refers this to the philosophy of Roland Amundsen, the first person to lead a team to the summit of the South Pole in 1911, back when that was not just dangerous, but extremely dangerous. And his Roland Amundsen's philosophy of 20-mile marching. So Roland Amundsen was competing with Robert Falcon Scott. And Robert Falcon Scott's philosophy was just go as far as you could on good days, 30, 40, 50 miles, whatever you could do crossing the South Pole. And on bad days when it's too cold, stormy, just hunker down. On the other hand, I'm quoting Great by Choice, Amundsen adhered to a regime of consistent progress, never going too far in good weather, careful to stay far away from the red line of exhaustion that could leave his team exposed, yet pressing ahead in nasty weather to stay on pace. Amundsen throttled back his well-tuned team to travel between 15 and 20 miles per day. When a member of Amundsen's team suggested they could go faster, up to 25 miles a day, Amundsen said no. I think this is extremely important in business. There is a mental tendency to want to jump in, get excited about a new plan, a new strategy, a new market, and just jump in too much, or you get frightened and you want to stop doing it. This market, it's too hot. Just stop buying. We'll just wait. I think that's the wrong approach. As he puts it, the 20-mile march is more than a philosophy. It's about having concrete, clear, intelligent, and rigorously pursued performance mechanisms that keep you on track. The 20-mile march creates 2 types of self-imposed discomfort. The discomfort of unwavering commitment to high performance in difficult conditions, and the discomfort of holding back in good conditions. And holding back is key in some ways. For example, he notes how the companies that had more success in these turbulent environments held higher cash reserves. And I mean, that's for a rainy day, maintain your solvency, but also to be able to jump on that great opportunity that just comes around instead of, not having enough cash to do so. And when times are good, 2006, 2007, times were good. People bought like houses like crazy, and then the crash came. Whereas someone who's more consistent would probably have been able to stomach that crisis better. Whereas, I've known people in 2014, 2015 that thought the market had reached its peak in real estate, and they stopped buying. And it's 6-7 years later, and they were sitting on the sideline the whole time. A good example of this that he gives is Southwest Airlines, who has been the most successful airline of late. They're one of the biggest in the world, the latest starter. And they would open 2 cities every single year, despite hundreds of requests. It was always 2. We're going to open 2 to 4. And this way they weren't spreading themselves too thin. They weren't, doing poor due diligence and jumping to the wrong cities or thinning out their management staff or trying to grow so fast that their customer service and their quality fell off because, they have to maintain that certain level. They're Southwest airline fanatics, people who I don't understand them. I don't get it. But I actually don't like the sit wherever you want. You're always awkward when you're trying to get the middle seat or whatever. Trying to get out of the middle seat. You don't want the middle seat. But Southwest is fine. I'm not trying to diss Southwest. But I don't really get the obsession with it. But some people have it, and a lot that comes from that high level of customer service and quality that they've been able to provide. And if they grew too fast, those are the first things that slide. I've seen, you see this all the time. Companies growing too fast, or they get too busy, and the quality, goes down, and they end up losing some of their best customers. They lose their reputation. It's sort of forcing yourself to be one, not, both courageous, but also, prudent and holding back when you want to go forward. It's sort of the Aristotelian mean, too much bravery is recklessness, not enough is cowardice. You need to be in between. And I think that is a critical thing to inculcate. And also, kind of on a side step, particularly for real estate investors, but for any business, as soon as possible, maintaining strong cash reserves. I mean, going into this crisis or going into the 2008 crisis, you don't know when this crisis is going to start. The higher your cash reserves are, or at least liquidity. I mean, we're having a lot of inflation, so just keeping in cash isn't a great idea. But liquidity is extremely important to be able to, stomach the rainy day. And also, when assets are cheap after a crash, that's when you want to have that cash and that liquidity to make purchases. Another example from a different book of his, How the Mighty Fall, is I found very, very telling. In December of 1980, Bank of America surprised the world with new CEO pick, a vigorous 41-year-old who told the Wall Street Journal that he believed the bank needed a good kick in the fanny. 7 months after taking office, Samuel Amrakost bought discount brokerage Charles Schwab. Then he engineered the largest interstate banking acquisition to date in the nation's history, buying Seattle-based Seafirst Corp. He launched a $100 million crash program to blast competitors and ATMs. Armacost ripped apart outmoded traditions, closed branches, and ended lifetime employment. He instituted more incentive compensations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the result was that, Bank of America fell from its net income peak of $600 million into a decline that culminated from 1985 to 1987 with some of the largest losses up to that point in banking history. Too much, doing too many things too quickly. Patience is a virtue in business. Consistency and it is a virtue as well. Sitting on the sideline, being scared, not going to work. The other thing that he really pushes is the concept of shoot that I really like, and it's in a similar vein, is shooting bullets, not cannonballs. So, for example, we're getting into commercial real estate a little bit. We're also considering starting to do some Airbnb properties. But this is not something you want to jump into full scale. If you have, say, 10 houses, but doing Airbnb with all 10, not a great idea. Start with one. Make sure you understand it. You understand the costs that are involved. You got to furnish it and all the rest of those things. That you have the time and energy, or you can hire a management company, and start with one. Go to 2. If we're going to commercial, we are buying. We've bought 2 small retail spaces. These are not major investments. Of course, if you have no houses and you're looking to buy your first one, or if you're looking to get into crypto investing and however you do that, you have to go from 0 to 1. But generally you want to, whenever you're switching to a new niche or expanding or opening up a new division or whatever, you don't want to go all in first. You want to sort of dip your toe. You want to plan and strategize and all the rest of that. But the best laid plans are well, there's a saying for a reason. And so one step at a time, and start small and grow from there. And the last point I think is really worth referencing was an interesting experiment that they did looking at the role of luck. I think a lot of people see, just these companies, these individuals, they're in the right place at the right time. And there certainly is some of that. But they did a very interesting analysis looking at the 7 companies that were the Great by Choice companies and the 7 comparison companies that were fine companies, but didn't do nearly as well. And they went through looking at various luck events. So here's an example of a luck event. In 1989, the New England Journal of Medicine published an article that challenged the effectiveness of TPA relative to more conservative strategies and alternative treatments. That was for Genentech, which is the comparison company for Amgen, which is one of the 10X companies. They found overall, looking through all the information they could find, obviously this is somewhat subjective, but they were able to categorize 49 good luck events or cases for the 10X or Great by Choice companies versus 56 for the comparison. And there were 65 bad luck cases or events for the Great by Choice or 10X companies versus only 60 for the comparison. So effectively, the comparison companies actually had a little bit more luck and a little bit less bad luck than the Great by Choice companies, which means that effectively these companies are in a volatile market. They are in a turbulent market, and they're coming from a position of vulnerability. Yet luck was not the major factor that differentiated the comparison companies from the 10X companies. And I think that's the way he even goes into discussing return on luck. Some of the comparison companies had very lucky events, but they weren't able to make a good return on it. They weren't able to capitalize it. This goes into Nicholas Taleb's arguments in the Black Swan. People might have a lucky event in their life, but some people capitalize it and some people don't. And so if you have one of those things, this could be a major turning point in your life. Drop everything and do it. With regards to companies, in this book, it shows the Great by Choice companies had a much bigger return on their luck, and they were able to capitalize it much better. So luck is a factor. It's a thing. I mean, obviously, some people are born blind. Some people are not. Being born blind is an enormous disadvantage, unfortunately, and it's just bad, rotten luck. So obviously, it's not to say that there is no such thing as luck, but you have to control what you can control, and you have to have the mindset that you are going to do as best you can with what you can control. And when you get lucky, you need to really capitalize on it and be ready to capitalize on it because you don't know when it's coming or if it's coming. But it's going to blindside you one way or the other, generally speaking. So I think this is a very good book. I definitely think it's good for business in general, and it's particularly good for right now. I wouldn't go put it in the legendary category, but I would definitely give it a good ranking. So we are going to go with 4.5 stars. I would recommend reading it, and I'd also recommend subscribing to our channel, and I will see you soon. Thank you.